So the basics of Linux engineering. Uh, what is Linux engineering? We need to understand the architecture of Linux. We need to understand the Linux file hierarchy. We need to understand the command line interface and the basics shell scripting. So Linux. Um, so it is an operating system. Simple as that. So I'll be able to remember. And what do I know about the architecture of Linux? It is an open source. People are able to, let's Linux deck architecture, Linux architecture. Um, so when it says Linux architecture is a large component of development such as kernel, system Linux, or system library, hardware layers, system, and shell functions. Um, well, in other words, uh, Linux hierarchy is a free open source system that is widely used in servers, supercomputers, embedded system, personal computers. The architecture of Linux uh, can be divided into separate components, which we can see it here. Hardware security shell. Okay, maybe this one. Kernel's layer of Android architecture. I believe this is for specific Android, but we could talk about kernel. What is kernel? Kernel is core component uh, core component of Linux system that interacts uh, directly with the hardware. Kernel, not the kernel corn type, but the kernel Linux type. Uh, so it manages resources such as the CPU input and outputs. It also provides the interface for users, space programs to access the hardware. So that's one of the components. And there is also shell. Um, so shell is the interface between the user and the kernel. Not the type of shell where you find it in a beach or the gas station, but uh, Linux. So this is what you call a shell. It provides a command line interface or short form of that is CLI and or the graphic user interface GUI for the users to interact with the system. The shell interprets the user's command and executes. So depending on uh, your command, it executes and prints out the output. For example, ls command, where it lists out uh, the properties. So there's also file systems. Um, Linux file systems or system. Uh, so file system is a hierarchy structure that organizes files and directories in the Linux system. It provides a way to access and manage on the disk or other storage devices. So this is the root component, and you are able to, organize. This is the hierarchy or the structure of the files and directories. Um, so as you could see, the root has home directory, etc, the boot, the bin. So the root has the user directory, which also the grandchild component of it is bin, local, sbin, and so on and so forth. So another component within the Linux architecture is the device drivers. Um, device driver. So device drivers are programs that allow the kernel to communicate with hardware devices, such as network cards, disk drives, printers. They provide an abstraction layer between hardware and the kernel. Uh, so in other words, device drivers literally drive everything you interested in disks, monitors, keyboards, modems, everything outside of the computer. So it's a driver for other devices, external devices. Um, uh, Another component of Linux is system libraries. Linux architecture is system libraries. Libraries. And system libraries are a collection of pre-compiled code that provides common functions and services to user space programs. They include libraries for network, graphic, file handling. But as the Google says, system libraries provides a special function or program using which application program or system utilities access kernel feature. So coming back to kernel, where it interacts with the main components, the CPU, how it interacts with the motherboard, uh, or within the computer language. Uh, so I believe one of the last components there is, uh, so just to reiterate, system libraries are a collection of pre-compiled code that provide common functions and services to user space programs. They include libraries for networking, graphics, and file handling. So it could be simple as, mm, let's see if I could find any better quality. I guess no. Well, yeah. Uh, so predefined code that helps what was it, with common functions. And one of the last components within the Linux architecture is the user space programs. Uh, User space programs. So, in other words, user space programs is one or are applications that run on top of kernel. So, similar to shell, they interact with the kernel through system calls, which provide a way to access kernel service and resources. Uh, User spaces. As you could see, the bash shell, there's other forms of it as well, where it interacts with the kernel space. Um, so overall architecture of Linux system is designed to be modular, which each component provides a specific set of functions and services. They also This also allows users to customize, extend the system to meet their specific needs. Linux architecture. So as we went over uh, the hardware, the motherboard and everything, uh, the kernel which interacts uh, interacts with the hardware. Uh, Shell is the interface between the user and the kernel and the applications. Those are whatever you see uh, uh, within your CLI. such as or the common components, or some of the libraries, system libraries, such as the uh, copy, list, ls, something like that. That's how I understand it.